everyone. Welcome back to a SASE Rensselaer SASEtalk podcast. This is our 10th session. Welcome back, right, everyone? 10th session. That's crazy. That's actually crazy. Now, I honestly didn't think we'd make it to 10. I thought, I'd get lazy and stop doing it. People would stop yelling at me to do it. But no, we're here. Number 10. For this session, we are inviting back a good friend and a alumni, former president, uh, Aaron Xie. How you doing? How you doing?
Hey Wes, doing well. How about yourself? Thanks for having me on the show.
Uh, Unfortunately, I am doing very fine. That's unfortunate. No, it's cold outside, but I'm very warm, and I've been warm for a long time. For Christmas, I had a self quarantine, so I've been home alone for a while now. But got to see my family for Christmas, so that was a plus. How do
Oh,
you
I was about to
spend your
say,
Christmas?
Home Alone. That doesn't sound too warm. What did I do for Christmas? Yeah, I was busy buying gifts for my cousins. Got a couple of Nintendo Switches.
Ooh.
Yeah, I got my cousin the new. It was a special limited edition one. I think it was like the Animal Crossing one. And I
Ooh,
also got
okay.
my brother the what do we call it, the Fortnite version
Oh,
as well. So that was
they have,
nice.
they have a Fortnite version? Whoa, that's news.
Yeah, Wes, you want one? I can gift you one instead of the other gift I have prepared for you tonight.
I'm a little scared. I'm a little scared. Oh shit. Crap. Oh boy. No, I mean, Christmas was fun this year. I mean, it's definitely a lot different than actually no. I might be honest. It wasn't too much different than in previous years. I've always spent it with family, right? Grandma, dad, mom. I've always done the same thing. It wasn't really that different for me. I just had a Christmas with extra steps. That's what I'm gonna call it, with extra steps. But
Yeah,
no.
with all the testing and stuff before and
Mm,
after.
yeah. But no.
Got you.
Thankful that everyone was able to safely visit and see family. Those who did and those who couldn't. There's always next year, and we just gotta tough it out. Um,
Yeah, once the vaccine rolls out.
yeah. But speaking of very very tough things, let's time travel back to when you were a few years younger, Aaron. And for the topic of this podcast, we are bringing back a former president and a former e-board member, former member, and former everything. Since you were everything, basically. Back to the table, Aaron. You during your time, you were what, 2 years my senior, right? 3 years
Mm-hmm.
or 2 years, right? 2 years.
I think two.
Yeah, you're
Yes.
2 years my senior. And your first year you were the freshman rep, second year events director, third year president, and fourth year you were a general member. Now, as an alumni, um, you've been alumni for about 2 years now, so you've been literally everything that you could possibly be on when it comes to as a member. So that must be fun, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, super fun. Yeah, so you're correct. I came to RPI in 2015, in fall 2015. I'm sorry, and I graduated from RPI in the spring of I believe 28. No, 2018, 2018, or my
Yeah,
2019.
2018, 2018.
2018, yes. So it's been a while. And yeah, as you said, as a freshman, came in, met the e-board at that time, the SASE e-board, I mean. And yeah, learned about the organization, took it upon myself to apply myself, and yeah, applied to become a freshman rep, eventually getting that job. And after that, my sophomore year, it was interesting because in freshman year, the organization as a whole realized that part of being an organization means creating events and creating consistent events, right? And so I threw this idea like a lot with the president at that time, Alexander Yin, and eventually we gave birth to this new position, which I started to head in my sophomore year. And yeah, from then on, I think the road was kind of paved for me to take on more leadership roles, not only within SACE, but also in other organizations like Hong Kong Student Association or HKSA, ACU, and which is the Asian Cultural Union. And yeah, just be more involved in the community around RPI. And then that was my junior year that I became president. And then senior year, at that point, I want to take a step back to see how SASE, would flourish, or how it would be without me. Because uh, part of becoming a part of an organization is, to see if the work you've done, like what lasts, and like what continues on after you're gone. Like I would say, like my legacy, right? And yeah, it was interesting to see what sort of effects my legacy brought about, especially during my senior year. So yeah, that kind of describes my timeline with SACE.
Yeah, no, that's crazy because you did so much, right? If you look at it, on just spread it all out, every single year you held, well, except for your senior year, but held a lot of positions and influenced a lot. And without a doubt, I can definitely say, as someone who followed up on the e-board after you left the e-board, there's a lot of things that we certainly still do, right? But that's just crazy. But like, you got to ask yourself, uh, why did you do all of that? Like, what what brought you to do student leadership, and especially, for organizations like these? Like, what was the reason that you wanted to do this?
Because, well, two-part reason. One, it was super uncomfortable, and yet at the same time, number two, it was fun. And you might be thinking to yourself, okay, Aaron said it's super uncomfortable, then why in the world would he ever do this? Well, the thing that I kind of came to realization once I came to RPI was, if I stayed comfortable, if I stayed, actually, let me rewind. So pre-RPI Aaron, pre-RPI Aaron was, you know, um, this little shy kid who, played, I don't know if you guys still play it now, League of Legends,
Oh God!
like
Oh God!
24/7. No, pre-Aaron he wasn't social. For the most part, he stayed at home. He he would go to school, and after school, he wasn't really part of many clubs. And once he went home, he would finish his homework. Actually, the truth is, Aaron always procrastinated his homework. Always played League of Legends first. And at the butt crack of dawn, that's when he started on his actual homework. I'm sure, as most of us can relate. And going to RPI, I kind of thought to myself, was that something I wanted to continue being, right? Was being this person who, just stayed at home and played video games, something that he wanted to be. And I realized that, staying at home and playing League of Legends, that was what I was comfortable with. Talking and browsing Reddit, on my own time, and just commenting whatever, behind a screen, that was what Aaron was comfortable with. And I realized that there was no way that I would ever change from that. And so, um, once I sort of like came across SACE, I thought to myself, look, SACE is it's going to be uncomfortable signing up for all these leadership opportunities. It's going to be uncomfortable doing all the things that I'm not used to, right? Whether that be talking to alumni, whether that be talking to um, major organizations, major agencies around campus. These are all things that were gonna make me uncomfortable. And yet, on that same note, it would also teach me certain things, right? It would teach me social skills. It would force me to be in these sort of situations where I would have to learn, right? And that was, well, and honestly, like it's scary, because that's you're I think the first time I like went out to one of these events, I felt like I was like stepping off a cliff, right? Um, that I was that it felt like I was falling, and then I realized that, all that fear, like that's just it's just all in your head, right? And once you sort of get comfortable with being uncomfortable, it kind of becomes this sort of like addicting thing where you're just thinking to yourself like, okay, like what's the next uncomfortable thing I want to do so that I myself can change for the better or whatever might happen. Say for example, like weightlifting, right? Like who is comfortable lifting weights the first time? No one, no one, right? But once
Almost
you
broke
start
my
doing
back
it,
when I did it the first time. Jeez.
I I have broken my back uh, multiple times. Um, I also lost an inch off of my height from doing too much squatting.
I mean, you
Um,
were short
but,
anyways. It doesn't matter.
but yeah, so I got comfortable with being uncomfortable, and once I started doing that, it just became addictive, and so that's how, you know, so my freshman year at least became freshman rep. Became a general member of HKSA, the Hong Kong Student Association, as I mentioned before. Sophomore year, became events director of SASE and also president of HKSA at the same time. Positions that going into those years, I wasn't comfortable with exactly. But looking back, it was there was a lot of growth that happened there, and I'm honestly glad that I took those opportunities, I took those chances to fail, to embarrass myself, and yeah, eventually. From sophomore year to junior year, I mean, state's presidency was always the plan in my mind. And yeah, like it was as uncomfortable a job as you can imagine, with all the discussions, all the meetings with different board members, whatever might have it. And yeah, and then during my last year, at least, I thought to myself, look, let's take a step back. Let's see what life is what life is like when
Right.
I'm not thinking about SACE. And yeah, that's kind of the reason why I signed up for all these leadership opportunities.
So you could say, if we round it down to one main thing, you could say that you became successful because you stopped playing League. Would you say? Would you say that? Would you say that? Would you say that's the reason why?
Hey, success is all relative, Back in my days, I was a Plat 1 League of Legends player. Um, but I would say, the person that I am today, had I not stopped playing League and gone out there and just, risk it all, yeah, I wouldn't be the same person I am as I am today.
Okay, word. Okay, I'm taking notes right now. I need to drop my Yasuo main, my global elite, my Yasuo main, and I'm a stop doing that. Got it. Notes
Oh
taken.
man.
Oh boy. But no, like what you said, that was a lot of stuff, and on top of that, your junior year, once you became president, you were very fortunate to meet a very young, handsome young man, and enter player two. I come in, and that's when we first met, and boy was that crazy, and then the rest is history. But damn, that was
Yeah, I,
uh,
I remember that. I remember the day I met you. I marked it on my calendar.
oh god.
It was, the beginning of the end. That's what I marked it as.
That dude, it was. I mean, people have probably heard this story a lot, but for those who don't know, my first e-board meeting was the most awkward shit you would ever think it was. Like it was terrible. Dude, it was just bad. So
It was
I don't know
bad,
if you remember.
yeah.
It was So I got this calendar, right? This paper calendar you guys were handing out during the club fair. And on the calendar, you guys had everything listed, all the events and times and dates just on this calendar. And I was holding the sheet. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And my dumbass, right? I had no idea what a e-board meeting was. I'm like, what the heck is an e-board? Is like an electronic board? You make music with it? I'm like, damn, that's pretty lit. And I'm like, word, I'll show up to it. I asked when you gave it to me, you're like, oh yeah, it's just like a general meeting. Everyone's welcome to show up. And I'm like, word, let's show up then. Um, and my dumbass never having to. I don't know what's the procedure. I don't know what's the protocol around here. What's the rules. I know I wake up a little bit early. I do my hair a little bit. And I'll put on some clean clothes, some fresh clothes, and a clean fit, and I show up like 20 minutes early. And my dumbass was sitting there in the empty dark room for like 20, 15 minutes, just absolute silence. And then Aaron walks in, turns on the light, and is like, "What the hell are you doing here?" And oh man, that was painful. Oh boy. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely without dispute. You've done a lot, for the organization, and I think that effect is, you can still feel it even today. Like, a lot of the things, one of the big things that you did was it, what do we call the transition documents? Where that was that what it's, yeah, it is, transition documents,
Hmm.
and that's something we still do now, and something that's very prevalent, in what wrapping up agenda and end of the year stuff. But no, that's pretty awesome, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
actually, Wes,
mhm.
you bring up well, you mentioned transition documents. Actually, I probably forgot to mention this before, and that's the fun aspect to all of it, right?
The fun
It's
aspect. Okay.
the fun aspect of all of it is seeing what you come up and seeing what lasts and like what continues, whether that be usage of like scheduling applications like Trello, whether that be documents like as you said, the transition documents, SASE reports, all these different things. Like it's always fun to see the things that I worked hard on to see which ones continue and which ones fail, right?
Right.
Because failure and success, these are all just byproducts. I'm interested more in the process, seeing what makes sense.
Mhm.
And I always thought to myself, like I would hope that most of the things that was done during my years, like they were done out of their utility, not so much not out of tradition.
Right.
I don't know if I'm being too clear. If the documents, for example, if they serve no purpose other than just needless additional paperwork, then maybe it's not a good idea to continue doing those
Mhm.
and the such. Another fun thing that I actually remember distinctively was the funding for SACE. And my freshman year, it, it was rough. It was rough affording pizza for events
Did,
because we were
did you
dealing
guys
with
have the Boeing fund at that time?
no,
No. Okay.
um, no, I don't know. We did not.
Okay.
And well, that the lack of Boeing funds that was due to multiple reasons, but at the end of the day, we had no access to those funds.
Mm.
Um, and it was rough. It was rough in the beginning. I won't lie. Even being able to like afford pizza for general meetings, drinks, any kind of like fun cultural events, like it was hard to find funding
Wow. Really?
for that. And it was really fun to see how we slowly built up and we reached out to a couple companies, a couple sponsors. And in particular, I remember it. I remember one moment where I thought to myself like, "Wow, if only like freshman year of me saw where we at today." Because I think it was at that point, Wes, you had just signed on a couple of new sponsors, and for the first time in a while, we could afford pizza. Like um, it was such a celebration. um, yeah, I definitely sound like a broke college student right now. But yeah, that was definitely one of the fun things, seeing where we started and how we kind of built on our work, and to see like how our efforts yielded results. And I remember distinctively that Wes, once you took over that fundraising route, like it just exploded. Our sponsorships, like the number of people contacting us for that, our sponsorship packages, like it was wonderful. And I remember not only was it you, but Drew Patel, um, Marcus Sang, Jason Lowell as well, all these key figures who helped guide that process along. So I would definitely say that's one of the fun things, of being part of an organization like SASE.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna be straight with you right now. If you see how much, the type of funds we're dealing with now, the e-boards that they're dealing with now, uh, you would lose your rocks. No, it would rock your socks, right? We financially. Now, I'm not gonna speak on behalf of the e-board, but I'm gonna let someone type in chat later on. But um, I would say the org is doing very very well in terms of contacting companies, contacting companies for events and having connections and networks, and that comes with the amount of funding we get, right? And not only just from like companies but also internally, you know our fundraising, getting funds from the school, um, working out contracts and sponsorship packages. I know I've got to say, uh, it's very impressive. I'm very impressed with everything that's changed, and not just with the money too, but with the type of events we're doing, the community that we have, and that's the most important part. That I would say it's definitely the community. Um, Unfortunately, I have to say that I think you can also kind of feel it too, Aaron. That my year, um, we didn't really get much people. Like the community was like mostly upperclassmen. And no, not to say that it was bad, but right now I can only think of a few kids who actually did stay with SACE for more than a year or two. But
Hmm.
nowadays, all these incoming kids, these guys are on for life. I swear Eric would get a tattoo of the SACE logo onto his ass if we didn't stop him, or if he had more than two brain cells, he probably have to stop it. But no, yeah, these kids, they are really dedicated, and I'm like, that's really awesome to see, because like the no, I didn't really have too many kids that were that dedicated. Steven, Spencer, Nathan, Aiden, and that's pretty much about it. From my year. But no,
Hmm.
I'm with you on that one. When you look at it now and compare it, to the very first year that you were involved in, the things that have changed, the thing that's evolved, that's just crazy. That's just awesome. It's crazy to see it. You but
Yep.
building on what you were talking about, right? Definitely throughout the 4 years. No, 4 years. You think about it, it's not a long time, but when you're doing a lot of stuff like this, when you're meeting so many people, it's definitely a really influential time, right? And you change a lot as a person, as a no, obviously as an engineer, per your major, as a professional and as an individual, a lot of things have changed. So how would you say during those times, those years, and compared to now, right? Your first year, the year you were president, so your junior year, and where you are now, how would you say your perspective on things, your outlook, both, as an individual and as a professional, as someone who leads other people, or someone who's no, what professional? Let's just stick with that. That's a good word. How would you say your outlook has changed in those three phases?
How my outlook has changed. I think freshman year when I became freshman representative, that was the first. That was the first time I ever took up a leadership position. How my outlook changed then, um, that's when I truly realized, like, wow, like the world is truly like my oyster. Like there's so many different things that I can do, um, and there's so many things I'm capable of. And like one thing that I remember distinctly, where I thought to myself like, wow, like I can do this, was when we partnered up with the head chef of Sodexo, and we threw a Asian cultural night in Commons Dining Hall where we kind of like Sace, I mean, kind of took over the dining hall. We worked together with the chefs to come up with different menus, and different recipes for all these like new dishes. I think we did, like we had a sushi station. We did pho, which is a Vietnamese noodle. We did. I think there was talks of there being Peking duck as well. I don't. I think there was some duck. The only issue there was it was in quite a bit of limited quantity.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, it was insane. It was insane to see how the work and effort that I put in to make this cultural night, how it was affecting so many how many undergraduates, um, at RPI. And yeah, like after that, like a lot of folks who weren't as involved in the Asian community, who were non-Asians themselves, like they all like came out to me after. They were like, "Yo, Aaron, like that was really good. Like typically, I only get like the pizza and like the burgers from like Sodexo, like from the Commons dining hall. Like I had like this like weird noodle thing that was like really good, and like having those kind of interactions, it really made me realize like yeah, like I can do it. Like there are like I can, if I put my mind, if I put my talents behind it, like I can do anything. And that was my perspective my freshman year. My junior year, when I became a president, the perspective kind of changed, in terms of, I still kept on that thinking that I can do anything. But what had changed was, you know, as a president, I had to think about how to get how to get there. Say, for example, if I brought up the idea of like bringing up that cultural night again, right? Um, what would I need to do to get there? Logistically, what kind of staffing do I need? How much planning? How much advertising? Like these are all things that I had to grapple with, as the president, at that point. And yeah, that was the big change in perspective then. Not so much, can I do it or I can do it. It's how, right? How can I achieve this? How can I get this done? Like what kind of people, what kind of talent do I need? What kind of advertising do I need? It was that change. It was from a what to a how at that point. And nowadays, as a professional, um, I think more so about the why, you why I want to do certain things. And I hate to use this example again, but the Asian cultural night, right? At the time, I didn't have a clear idea as to why. But now looking back, I've sort of realized that my why was to spread Asian culture, to bring more awareness to it. For a lot of folks going to RPI, they're not used to authentic Chinese food, um, and it was it was heartwarming to see people try things for the first time, things that I'm familiar and things that are very near and dear to my culture, and having them accept and also enjoy that as well. So that's how I would say my perspective has changed throughout the years, from freshman year of what it is I wanted to do, my junior year to how I want to do it, and to now as a professional where I ask myself, why do I do it?
Yeah. No, like that's a huge growth in perspective. No, and no, that's pretty awesome to know. I mean, I think I'm on track to kind of feeling the same thing. No, but to comment on what you said, right? The A lot of the time spent, as early on was definitely a lot more, idealistic. You a big dream, you got big ideas, and you start thinking on some really huge tasks and ideas, crazy stuff. Um, and you don't really think about the logic and the reasoning or the logistics behind everything, because you're young, you're naive, and it's not your job to think about it. And you got a wonderful team when you're young, and that's gonna help you, choose and help you decide and figure all the intricate parts out. But once you get to the top, you are that person. You have to put together the team that makes these decisions. And then that's where some people are right now. They're looking, as the presidents. They look down and oversee stuff. The event committee leaders, they look over their committees. Um, I know it's really interesting that you brought up that now as a professional, you're also looking into the reasoning behind stuff, not just the actual planning and working on it, but the logic behind it, and that's really interesting growth. Um, and then no, that now that you put into words, I definitely no, I'm like sitting here like yeah, no, I totally agree with it. Uh, but what would you say caused this growth and change? Was it because of just experience, just going through into the water and feeling the current and like that's where it's molding you, that's how it's pushed you? Or was there any like major event you would say there's like not b- on addition with the experience of just being there, right? What would you say caused this growth and this change in perspective?
You know, all this change in yeah, like remember how I said in the beginning, by being comfortable with uncomfortable, that kind of forces you to learn certain things, right? And it also forces you to change. It also forces you to look at yourself objectively, see where you're lacking, see what kind of perspective that you that you missed from before you were starting to plan anything. And I'd say it was a slow build up throughout the years. It, it might be different for some people where it might be this one time, it could be a mistake, it could be a success, um, where you thought to yourself like, wow, like that's pretty good case study, right? Say for example, one of the events that I planned it was for Hong Kong Student Association, not SASE, but it was for an Asian cultural night. But this was in cahoots, or this was um, planned alongside Sunhee's Farm and Kitchen when they were first opening. This was who else was there? There was a couple of Vietnamese restaurants there as well, and this is all in downtown Troy. I think in that event, HKSA rather, they were selling egg puffs, and for those of you who don't know, it's a type of waffle that has like little balls and like little crevices, and like once you bite into it, it's crispy on the outside, and on the inside, it's like very light and fluffy. Um, and that was between my freshman and junior year. I knew what it is I wanted to do. I didn't know what kind of, or I was still grappling with the struggle of how to get it done, how to make sure that we were delivering quality egg puffs to everyone there, because at the end of the day, this was also spreading Asian awareness amongst the Troy locals, right? And yeah, that was, and unfortunately, that night, and yeah, that night the egg puffs didn't turn out well, right? I got a lot of complaints that night, and it was, I'm not saying that it was bad that they came out. Well, it is bad that they came out um, not as expected, but it was a major opportunity for me to learn, because that's when I realized, look, I didn't put enough effort into figuring out the how, like how to deliver quality egg puffs in this case. And yeah, that was a shock to the system. And had I, like it was uncomfortable, at the end of the day, and it forced me to change and grow. Um, and yeah, it was. I wouldn't say that was a major. That's just an example, but little bits of like failures and successes here and there that kind of like help you. They kind of help guide you towards this path that I had, at least, from figuring out the what I wanted to do, the how I wanted to do it, and to finally like the why. And like I don't know what's the next step for me. And yeah, it's but all I know is at the end of the day, like I have to put myself out there. Like that's the best that I can do for myself. And yeah, that's how I say my perspective changed throughout the years.
Um, so So I kind of feel that I know I kind of went through a similar path, right? That and no, I wouldn't say just me, but I think a lot of people that it's usually something that happened, whether it's good or bad, that really changes the way you think of and see things. For some people, it's achieving a major milestone or someone messing up, and that people saying, oh yeah, that was a big change in my perspective. But then when you ask them, like, oh, would you go back and change something different? And they usually say, like, oh yeah, I would probably do this better. But would you want to do that better? Like if if somehow magically I gave you a time machine and you were able to go back, how many years, 6 years I think, back to when you were a freshman, with the knowledge you have now, but just back then, would you really do anything differently? Right? Like, would you change the way you did things? But would that cause yourself to not learn and not go through all that? Right? I don't know. The time travel is weird, but no, just say, like, would you actually do anything different, or would you let yourself go through the same events and experiences so you get where you are now?
Yeah,
Right?
I mean,
You get what I'm trying to say?
yeah, yeah, yeah. If you had asked me right after I graduated, if I could do it all over again, um, would I? No, with the knowledge that I did, like, with the knowledge that I had today, would I have done it any different? If you asked me shortly before the pandemic, I probably would have said yes because, at that point, um, I wasn't satisfied with where I was, right? And I wasn't exactly satisfied where um, RPI had sort of guided me in terms of work, in terms of jobs, in terms of my professional career. I wasn't happy and I wasn't satisfied. If you ask that if you ask that to me today, I would say that it I wouldn't do it any different than I did before because I think that's regret and also the experiences that you come across like throughout the years, like that's what helps you yeah, that's what helps you become like the person. Like if I had done anything different in the past, I wouldn't be the person I am today. And as the person I am today, I'm very satisfied where I am in terms of professional, in terms of personal, in terms of family. Like I'm very satisfied with that now. And at the end of the day, it's all about perspective, right?
Of
Um,
course.
in the past, I might have thought to myself, like, man, like right after graduating, I mean, like, man, I should have done a degree in CS, right? Um, and gotten a job like my good friend did, who's working at Microsoft right now. Like he's making six figures. Why didn't I think of doing doing that instead of what I am doing now? Working rather harsh hours, like we're talking like
Hmm.
60, 80 hour work weeks, and breaking my back when I'm only getting paid like a paltry amount, right? Like it's not hard to think thoughts like that, and it's not hard with those kind of thoughts to think to yourself like, man, I regret doing this, I regret doing X, Y, and Z, like I should have done A, B, and C instead.
Hmm.
But at that point, it's all about perspective because you have to think to yourself like, was CS something that you were really gonna enjoy? Maybe like the money would have been nice, but I don't know for a fact if I would have enjoyed it or not.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, like, and now I know, looking back, like I've taken coding lessons, and I know for a fact like that is not me. That is definitely not me. And yeah, now I've kind of really come to realize, like life, like there are always going to be regrets, and they're going to be a part of, who you are. And but at the end of the day, they're going to help you grow. Um, and so yeah, I'd say I don't know. I think that was like a weird, twisted way of like answering your question, but yeah, I wouldn't change anything. Yeah.
I definitely think it's a matter about where you are currently and what time frame you're asking about. Because I'm pretty sure when I'm like like 100, if I knock on wood, if I live to that long, which I don't think I'll be 100, but If I live to 100, you ask me would I do that all over again? I'll be like, you know what? I'm getting too old for this. I can't handle all that stress, cramming for finals and doing that all over again. But there's got to be some beauty to it, being like, yeah, I would redo all that, and change up decisions and see where I go. And well, then then you get all that gets all messy. Like I should have been, I don't know what's a crazy a geology major. Oh, that would have been fun. Imagine being a geology major. No offense to any geology majors out there.
Shout out to
I
all the
love,
geology majors out there.
I love you all, but there's always a limit to how much you can imagine how things would have gone, because we never actually know. Like if I did do that differently, that's where we end up. But um, I mean, I always, I think that not always, but most of the time, I think where we are now is probably for the better for the most part, whether it's what decisions you make, whether it comes to education, it comes to career, um, you know, the decisions we make, you know, at the time you might like, oh, that was a terrible idea, but as you gain more distance from that event, and you actually, gain perspective and you look at it from different angles, you're like, yeah, it was bad at the time, but in the long run, it probably wasn't. I think that's what you were trying to get at earlier, and I certainly feel the same way. Like it's a messed up way to think about it, to normalize mistakes like that, to make it feel like it's okay, but it really is okay in the long term. So no,
Mhm.
that's it's the beauty of the image, the pretty picture. Um,
Yeah, I I would say, these days in particular, I've sort of thought to myself that it's not, success, failure, these are all just byproducts of the process. Like as long as you focus on the process, um, like that should be the most important part, not so much the failures, not so much the success,
right,
but
right.
like focus on the process and the regrets and everything. Like there's like look, you'll come up with 1,000 different reasons why this specific event, like was a regret. But a change in perspective, you just need to come up with 1,001 different reasons why it was good for you,
Hmm.
right? Like I'm not saying to come up with 1,000 ideas, you know, maybe it could be like two or three ideas. An event like say for example, the the Hong Kong Egg Puff fundraiser, as I mentioned before. No, the biggest regret, the egg puffs didn't come out well. But what was a really good thing that came out of it? We worked at our recipe. We were forced to look at our recipes objectively, see what was wrong, see what we can do to fix it, and we ended up creating a pretty damn good egg puff after that event.
Hmm.
And it's like yes, things don't always go as intended, and you can always think one certain way. Just think of one more reason why
Hmm.
on the other side to change it into a more of a moment of learning, a positive moment for everyone and yourself, for that matter.
Right, right. So I'm gonna take that, and the finals and the GPA that I had tanked, that's just no, that's just nothing. Everything's gonna be fine in the future, right? This 1.8, it's not going anywhere. It out of here. It's gone the next year. It doesn't matter, right? Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah,
I agree.
as long as you get a job at the end of the day, that's all that
Yeah, no,
matters.
no.
All that matters.
McDonald's janitor, here I come. Yeah, no, but a lot of people have always told me like, "Oh man, like I bombed that test." I'm like, I always don't never know what to say when someone comes up to me like, "Oh, like I'm so sorry for you," like, or like, "Oh, forget about it. It doesn't really matter." And then they get kicked out of school because their GPA falls below a 1.8, and they have to transfer because they're on probation. I, I don't know where I'm going with this, but no, I don't know where I'm going with this. But yeah, um, that's a really like needed perspective, especially with right now when everything seems to be going to hell. Online classes are rough. They be real rough for a lot of people who aren't used to the situation. A lot of things have changed. A lot of people's conditions have changed. Um, and there's bound to be a lot of people in unhappy places. And
Hmm.
hopefully,
And yeah, exactly that. With with the ongoing pandemic, it's so easy to think to yourself how bad the situation is right now. The fact that we're all stuck at home, the fact that we can't see our friends, the fact that we can't go out anymore, we can't go to concerts, we can't go to festivals or anything like that. Like there's so many different reasons, and it's so easy to come up with all these reasons, right? But at the end of the day, you have to think to yourself, look, it's things. The outlook is bad enough. Why continue doing that? Why not change it into something more positive, right? With the pandemic, spend more time on yourself, right? Self-improvement, whether that be being healthier, eating cleaner, working out, whether that be reading more books. There's so many
getting a hair
different things that.
transplant, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Dressing better, right? No, dressing like a Wes, I remember on your Instagram,
Oh God.
I think it was like the first time I've ever seen you wear something that made you look like a K-pop star, and because the West in my mind when I think of him, he's wearing black on black with a
Oh shit.
Supreme fanny pack
Oh shit.
and a small Supreme pocket knife and a Supreme bottle as well.
I actually have it right
And
here.
like it's funny how like yeah like how your fashion has changed, and that could be something that can be positive that you can take out from this pandemic. Start like a side hustle, like start an internet side hustle, right? Create your own blog, start your own YouTube channel, start your own podcast. Like I love what SASE has been doing with this podcast program, and yeah, like look, the pandemic is bad as it is. There's so much gloom, um, but it really is up to you to sort of change the narrative on that. Like look at yourself and think to yourself like, how can I change this negative situation to something positive for me? And yeah, I think that's the change of perspective, right? At the end of the
Hmm.
day, that's all that's about.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I 100% with you on that one. Except for the fact that I don't wear black on black. It's black and off black. Okay, there's a difference. Um, but yes, I agree with the growth part. Except I still have that pocket knife right here in front of me. Um, and I honestly I think I sold my actually no, I didn't sell the fanny pack. But you
Move
win some, you
over.
lose some. You win some, you lose some. But
Move
um,
move over, off-white Virgil Abloh. Here comes off-black Wesley Chow.
hey,
Oh
off
man,
black, that's something. I'm not gonna lie, off black is something.
that new hype. Is that new branding?
But yeah, no, that's all the time we have for this week. But no, a wonderful message. Like I completely agree uh, with today, and I think it was really insightful to just to see how, if anything, has changed from someone who's been through all the spots we have been in, and more. So Aaron, thank you so much for participating in our podcast for this
Yeah,
session. It was wonderful having you. You know, you know, both on this call and in this podcast, and also beyond. The things you've done for the organization. That's no, we still feel the effects today, and it's absolutely wonderful to have you back on and to hear from your perspective on some of the things that you saw and experienced behind the scenes.
yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
And yeah, hey, if you ever need another guest on the show, you're more than welcome. Please give me a holler.
Oh, don't tempt me. I will take up that offer. I will. But no, thank you everyone for listening. Whether that is live, that is on YouTube, or if by the time we get this editing done, if you are listening to this on Spotify, thank you all so much for tuning in. It's been absolutely wonderful. I want to give a wonderful special shout out to our sponsors, Boeing. And Cigna, thank you very much for sponsoring our organization and putting together and making this podcast, wonderful session possible. Thank you so much. If you are on YouTube, please like, comment down below on what you think. How if you would do things differently if you went back in time. Let us know what you think on that topic. Let us know your thoughts, your answers, and what you would do. And we'll take a look at that later. Like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell notification icon. If you're listening on Spotify, please hit that follow and check out our next podcast in 2 weeks' time. Thank you all so much for listening, and I will see you all very soon. Bye bye.